Hello and welcome back to Taking Back Saturday, a Happy Buyers Club podcast where we break down the real estate market each and every Friday to help home buyers build confidence, follow a process, and hopefully buy really happy. I'm your host, Chase Jones, and joining me as he does each and every day is my mate, Sam Hunter. How are you, friend?
Hello, Chase. Hello, listeners. Very well. Thank you.
Here we are.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I'm a bit like somebody who's been looking for a house for a long time and they're ready to make an offer. This is an important episode.
Oh, mate.
It's one that we're going to cover a lot of ground in maybe 20 minutes, hopefully less than 25 minutes.
The two fastest speakers in all of potentially South Brisbane. That'll be no worries, I dare say. This is part 5 of our buyer how-to series. And yeah, this is where it's going to get real. Seen it, you like it, now it's time to actually buy. And I think for a lot of buyers, this is where it gets pretty uncomfortable.
Yeah,
for sure.
Scary stuff, man. You think to yourself, you go and look at a house that you don't want to buy, it's not meaningless. It's a good learning experience. You walk into a property that you do want to buy and you wonder why all these other people you don't know and like are in your living room.
Get out of here. I love this place.
That's it.
Leave.
And so this is the bit where, again, I'm going to say it, you got to slow down to speed up.
For sure.
You're going to take a bit of time to understand as much as you possibly can about how that agent runs their processes, about what those sellers actually need to move on, not just the price that they're aiming for. And then you're going to craft through listening for the next now 19 minutes an offer that goes a long way to getting accepted.
Nice one. And just to preface, we'll cover off in this episode more so things to do with private treaty offers and purchasing. So that's things that you're seeing for sale, by negotiation, offers over, offers closing. We'll loop back round for best and final offers at the tail end of the pod and maybe auctions next week. But for the most part, and a lot of property in Brisbane particularly, you're going to see being sold without a price.
Price, fine, negotiation.
It's certainly not JB Hi-Fi. You're not walking in and seeing the sticker of what you're going to buy. In fact, it's probably closer to the exact opposite of that.
Yeah. Maybe with a couple of young kids who probably shouldn't be working there, trying to help you through it.
Yeah, a few less nose rings though. Yeah. But absolutely, here we are finding ourselves in a property that we really like.
Yeah.
If we've communicated well with the agent in the days prior, the weeks prior, maybe even the months prior, it's going to be crucial. Not only is there hopefully a level of trust there, but hopefully there's enough information gathered about the seller and the seller's situation that you can craft an offer with great conditions, or at least conditions that make it easier to accept. Hopefully it's not all just about price. If you can solve a problem for those sellers, it's going to put you in a great position to hopefully save you a bit of money.
For sure. I know we harp on about communicating with real estate agents so much on this show, but it's for this moment. When you make an offer and an agent uses your first names rather than just this buyer, it goes such a long way to putting you at the top of the psychological pile. And then they start to consider things like, oh, that offer is $20,000 less, but if for some reason he feels like they're the right party, maybe there's a little bit more there from them, but actually everything else lines up. We're more confident that we will have a result in 7 days, 10 days, 14 days with these guys than somebody else who's just given us an expression of interest with a number on it and nothing else is really filled in. So talking to real estate agents serves a purpose when you have that anxious feeling of, we think we found the house that we want, because it will put you ahead of everybody else.
Yeah, I like what you mentioned there about fast certainty. If we've had good conversations with our broker, we know a good building and pest guy. We've done all the right research ahead of time, and we can have conditions that are tight. And working towards what you can confidently work towards, but giving the seller certainty in a less than a week. Wonderful. Instead of potentially them sitting there wondering in 2 weeks' time if they've got themselves an unconditional offer.
Do I have to have 2 more open homes? I hate anyone who's listening to this who's ever sold a house, you'll know you hate open homes. It's a lot of stress that goes into that. If you can buy a property and save them having to have another open home, that is an advantage of your offer versus anyone that doesn't give them that.
And dovetailing that into what they're doing. I know we've said in a previous episode about asking questions about what are the sellers doing? Where are they going? How much time do they need? Are they bought yet? Is there a settlement timeframe that we need to line up here? Even just being able to give them that little olive branch to be like, sure, I'm here to help you move with your next move, not just my move. you'd be amazed at how far that can put you ahead of the pack by just offering conditions that are so in line with what the sellers actually need.
For sure. Too many people think that real estate is about winning and losing. Yeah. And nothing happens unless it is fair for all parties. People don't sell their house unless it's fair. They might sell for less money than they initially wanted, or they might be selling for circumstances that aren't entirely pleasant, but they won't accept something if it feels unfair. That's just human nature. And it's the same thing on the buying side. So if you can set this up where everything feels fair, you've come to their level, you've met some of their terms that are really important to them, and the only way you know that is by talking to the agent over and over again, then price becomes the last conversation, not the first thing they look at and the first thing that they reject. It's just, this is how you make an offer that's really easy to accept. It's like, we're selling before we're buying. We need 90 days. Cool. Here's 90 days.
It's about understanding, and that's, being human at some point. I think that just...
It's a weird thing to say in real estate, but that is the reality of really good real estate. It is actually very human.
So pairing the information that you've gathered, hopefully earlier in the week, prior to inspecting a property, with then the conversation that you're going to have on a Saturday afternoon. So like we say all the time, follow up. Even if you don't like the property, that can come in the form of a text message being like,
Sure.
Hey, wasn't for me, loved this, didn't love this is what I think on price. But for the ones that you do like and that you want to know what's going to happen next, you're going to want to make a phone call, and you're going to want to ask, how many groups did you come through? Did you get any offers? How many offers? When are you presenting those offers? Is there a way I can buy this thing today?
Yep. Are we offering on a contract? Are we offering on an expression of interest form? Am I just sending you an email and a text with a price? Hopefully don't make an offer like that. We'll talk about that in a second. But knowing all that just manages your expectations, and it takes away that anxiety of like, you're at a mate's barbecue on Saturday night, your kids are being feral, and they're like, "Just see a house you like today?" And you're like, "Yep. Do you want to buy it?" "I don't know. Shit, I didn't call anyone back. No one's called me." And then you just sleep poorly till Monday, and then on Monday it's like calling for best and finals by midday, and you're scrambling like anybody else. All of that saved by ideally a phone call on a Saturday afternoon, but at the very least a text message.
Yep. Okay. I've gone to see a property. It ticks all the boxes.
Oh, scary.
I love it.
Yep.
I've made the call. I know that there is an opportunity for me to buy this property potentially today. And I've got a great understanding of probably what it's going to take to do so. How do I make an offer?
All right. So we are big fans, and we'll do this. We don't often like force our way to make an offer on a contract, but it's very much our preference to do it, is that we'll have all of our clients' details ready to rock and roll. And we actually tee that up from like week one of the search, just in case something pops up and we have to make a fast decision. But we will always do everything we possibly can to make our offers on a contract. In the old days, it used to be very romantic. You printed off a contract, you'd go to the agent's office, or they'd come to your house and you would sign it together, an initial, all the pages, and it was easily the time to get more money out of the client, thinking of my real estate hat on. Nowadays, it's send me an email with all your information, so full names, current address, your contact details, phone and email, solicitor details if you know them, finance scores, building and pest scores, cooling off period if you're going to have it or waive it, any special conditions, your settlement time frame, your deposit amounts. Are you paying an initial deposit and a balance deposit? If it's an unconditional offer, what is your final deposit going to be? And then finally, what do you want to spend? We have all that information collated into an email. We deliver it all verbally over the phone first, and then we send an email and say, our clients are ready to execute a DocuSign as soon as you send this to them.
It certainly does sound a whole lot less romantic than for Sam, who those that aren't watching on a visual platform would know that Sam's like 900 years old and was probably doing contracts on old parchment.
For sure. It was great. It was a good way to know if someone actually wanted to buy a property. And you actually, it felt like you were doing something really serious. Now you're clicking 4 yellow buttons to sign your life away and spend potentially millions of dollars on a property. It is way less romantic. It is easy. It is actually very easy to make.
But it's no less serious.
Hell no.
This is a point where you want to like reiterate to the agent that you are the buyer. And I'm doing this for a reason. I'm presenting all the information that you need to put this onto a 4-button click DocuSign. And I'm going to run you through those details now. And I like that when you ran through that there, that the purchase price was the last thing you mentioned.
Yep. Let them build the story. They want to see how serious you are before you give them your number. And it's the same thing when they're reading that email. It's the same when we're delivering it on the phone, right? We are getting them excited about everything like, yep. Okay. It's usually how it goes. But okay is a good place to start as far as I'm concerned. I think the other point that I'll make about why we always stress to make offers on contracts is if you make an offer on an expression of interest form, or you fill in one of those silly online forms that some of the big agencies will give you, which is just because they're a bit lazy and they don't want to go through this process for everybody. The seller, if they want to accept your offer, they can't sign your form. They can't sign a scanned PDF expression of interest, and they can't reply to your email and count that as a contract. They can push their 2 yellow buttons, not 4 yellow buttons, on a DocuSign and sell you their home. It just puts you at an advantage to everybody else to slow down, to speed up in this process.
Now, back to price.
Yeah.
I know that we said price is hopefully the least important thing, but sometimes it is the most important thing, and it is important to get that number right.
Yep.
Finding out what a property is worth. There are obviously gated portals which can give you a good steer of what, potentially what they think an estimated value of that property is. But again, that's just based off comparable sales.
For sure.
Comparable sales are your friend. You need to go and do the work to go and find the sales in the areas that you're looking to purchase within. Similar land sizes, similar number of bedrooms, bathrooms that have sold in a relatively close period of time, and work out whether what you're looking at is better or worse and why.
For sure. And ideally, you're going to call the agents that sold those. If this is all happening in a very rushed time frame on a Saturday afternoon, it can feel like a lot of pressure, it can feel like a lot of stress, and maybe you don't have the time to make those phone calls. That's why you want to look at this stuff before you go on open home.
Yeah.
We're coming back to last week's show, organized buyers, the best buyers. If you know what your comparable sales are and you've had a text back and forth with that agent and you're like, hey, I'm going to the open at 123 Smith Street on the weekend. You sold 321 Example Street. It looks pretty similar. You got 1.3.
Can you tell me the story about that one? Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, we had 60 groups through. We expected 1.2, went for 1.3. And you go to that open home on Saturday and there's 60 groups through and it's 6 months later and they want 1.3. You're probably going to have to be 1.35, maybe a bit more. If the stories line up, it's going to probably be a very similar result. If they don't, you've got options. You're just going to ask more questions of the real estate agent.
Yeah. I'll preface that in the market that we're in now and have been in for a while, you're not stealing anything.
No.
And don't go into purchasing a property thinking that that's the only way you're going to buy, is if you're going to get a absolute steal of a deal, so to speak. It's more about having confidence in the price that you're paying. Okay, so by doing these comparable sales reports, understanding the story behind those, you can justify what you're willing to pay or where you see value in that property. It's good for yourself to know that you're buying well, even if that means having to pay a fair to close to premium price to get a great property.
The house is the win.
But having confidence in those comparables means that you can speak to them with the agent. If there is any pushback and we find yourself in a negotiation, being able to say, but 321 Example Street was a better property than this.
And I spoke to the agent and they told me this, this, and this.
And it sold in a hotter market and all these things. And all of a sudden you become a pro.
The expert.
Yeah. You're the one that has the information, the context, and are justifying your great offer. You've already got great terms. You've put forward a very fair price that solves a problem for the sellers, and you're justifying it with great comparable sales. Holy dooly. Are you a buyer's agent?
It also helps you if it comes back and there needs to be movement for you to secure that property. And it is that home that you've seen loads you didn't love and you walk into that one and you did. It gives you confidence to pay a premium price. And that is the reality of really good homes in this market. And I think we're recording this January 2025. If you're listening to this in January 2026, I reckon it's going to be a pretty similar market where really good stuff sells for really good money, whether it's a finished home or a really good opportunity. Everything else will sell for the right money, in my opinion. So doing all this homework, setting it up, being organized, talking to agents, probably going through this once before you then go through it again and learn a few lessons, it just sets you up to make the best offer possible for you, and you give yourself the best chance of buying that property. And if someone comes in and pays way more than you're willing to after doing all this homework and setting it up the right way, that's okay too, because they've paid a price that you didn't see value in.
Yeah, missing out is okay.
For sure.
As long as
it's part of real estate. And
sure.
Sometimes it's a really good thing.
For sure. You've probably learned a lesson along the way. You probably have a deeper understanding of what the process looks like and how that process could be potentially improved next time. But you've also got potentially an ally in that agent who's like, okay, I'm going to find you the next one. I know what you like and I know that you're not bullshitting me. Let's go and make this happen.
For sure.
That's all a big part of it as well. Once we've submitted an offer, you need to ask a few more questions. Don't just submit your offer and sheepishly get off the phone. You need to set expectations with that agent.
This is like the part where agents look at us and they're like, why are you doing this to me?
Man, don't make me work so
Yeah,
hard.
literally, people call me old man Sam because I'm just grumpy at this point in time. But it's like, hey, we've made that offer. When am I going to hear from you? Is it going to be in an hour? Is it 2 hours? Is it 3 hours? Is it tonight? Is it tomorrow? We want to keep our guys calm. We want to make sure that they're in a headspace to make whatever decision that they want to make when you come back to me, whether it's with a yes, a no, a maybe. It's the same thing with any buyer. It's like, hey, we've made that offer. Are we going to hear from you tonight? When are you going to present it? If they say that they're going to think about it, are you going to let me know that they're thinking about it? Or are you just going to play this shitty game of whoever talks next loses with me, which is a shitty game for any real estate agents listening. Don't do that to people. It's not fun. But yeah, set that up. Worst case, you can be like, hey, I'm going to call you tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock to make sure that everything's gone as we've discussed.
Okay, well, now it's time to talk about probably everyone's least favorite thing in real
Scariest
estate.
part of real estate. Yeah,
Easily the scariest part. Best and finals, for sure.
this is like the bit where everyone's heart sinks a little bit because the I guess first reaction to whether it's best offers buy or you get that text message being like, this property is going to sell tonight. If you're interested, you have to be above this level. Your heart sinks and you think we're going to miss out. Particularly if the more you like it, the more you think you're going to miss out. That's kind of the reality of this circumstance in real estate. And that's why real estate agents use it as a method of sale, because it does extract good prices.
For sure.
behind the
Freak
scenes,
out
right?
prices.
For sure. We're going to talk about auctions next week. We like auctions because it's so transparent. We don't like best and finals because it's not. In an auction, if 2 people are going at it or 3 or 4 people are going at it, the purchase price may only be $1 or $1,000 or $5,000 more than second place. Behind closed doors in a best and finals campaign, it might be $1, it might be $1,000, it could be $50,000 or $60,000, and you just don't know. And from a buying perspective, you never know how good a value you're getting if you end up buying it, and you never know how much you missed out by until the price comes on the internet 45 days later.
So hopefully, regardless of whether it's, offering ahead of time or whether it's, best and finals, you still don't want to find yourself scrambling. So
For sure.
everything still applies. The process remains the same, and often some of the same questions apply as well. How many offers do you have? How many offers are you expecting? When are you presenting those offers? Again, as much information as you can get, you're not going to probably get disclosed where the other offers are or what their conditions are. So at that point, you still have to put your best foot forward. And oftentimes that's going to be a conversation between yourself and your buying partner about where we're happy to walk away. We are trying to find the dollar in which we're content for someone else to have bought that property. Because, like we said, it is your best and final offer. So at what point do you see value up to? And if it was $1 more and you find out the following morning that someone bought it for $1 more than you did, you've got to be probably not okay with it, but content that someone's paid more than you were willing to pay for.
Exactly right. And I think this is where most of the time you have a little bit of time before it gets to that best and final offer closing date. And that's where you can have these conversations of, if we think the property is worth, and we use 1.5 as an example, then you have to say, will we buy it at 1.6? And if the answer is hell no, well, would you buy it at 1.59? And you work your way backwards together as like a partnership to work out at what point do you start arguing? Well, I'd buy it at that. Well, I wouldn't. Why? And that will help you understand what your actual best and final offer is, because it doesn't always happen like this. I'll walk you through what is best practice in this situation. So in any best and finals situation, what should happen is one of 3 things. You'll make the offer and you'll buy it. Someone else is in the game and they'll buy it, or the agent may then agree to continue negotiations again behind closed doors with one party and one party only. You want to give yourself the best chance of being option A or option C. And if you're option C, we had this the other day where we were option C and we held our offer where it was, and they were like, cool, we're going to go and talk to somebody else. And we're like, fine, we're pretty comfortable. If we miss out, it doesn't matter, right? We are at the edge of where we see value. Someone else bought it, they saw value above us. That's okay. We all moved on, we found something better. If you don't have those conversations early, you open the door to missing out and being annoyed about it. The last thing that you want to do in a best and final situation, we're going to talk about oh shit prices next week when we go to the auction, is have the agent call you and say you missed out, and then in a month's time see the price and go, we would pay way more than that, because you didn't have that conversation up front. You didn't get courageous with each other and argue it out behind your own scenes before submitting your best and final offer to the real estate agent.
I've always said when you're having that conversation, you need to frame it in two ways. It's, what is the absolute last dollar that I'd be willing to pay for this property? And we'll use that example of 1.59.
Hmm.
But then if I spun the question around and told you that if you were offered the property with a sticker on it that said 1.59 buys this right now, would you accept it? And if the answer is yes, well, guess what? That's your new price.
That's the price.
Because that is just the exact same way of framing the same to get to the same point is, where's the price I'd walk away from? But also if if she was on the other foot and I was being almost like counter offered at that price, would I say yes? Or all of a sudden you do see value there and you do want this property at that price. Okay. Again, making sure, harping back to comparable sales, don't put yourself in a position where you're paying, way overs to the point that you might even put your finances at jeopardy here, or put yourself in a position moving forward where you're living off baked beans. But if it's within the range of fair market value, sometimes you got to pay a premium for good properties. But if you've done all the right research and it's a great opportunity and a great price, crack on, get it done.
For sure. Give yourself the opportunity to buy it or miss out where, it stings because you really like the house, but it doesn't matter because you gave it your absolute best shot. You followed a process, you saw it through, versus, oh, we'll offer this and see what happens, right? People who get upset, I'm going to go on a bat for real estate agents here, but people who get upset about missing out on best and finals don't have these conversations. They put an expression of interest with a figure that they haven't gone through these motions, and they wonder why somebody else, and the easiest thing to say is, oh, they paid way too much. But invariably, most people didn't figure out what their best and final price was. They just put a price down and hoped for the best.
Yeah. Hitting and hoping is not a strategy.
100p.
We're going to go into greater detail about preparing for auctions in the next podcast. But for now, Sam, I reckon that's 20 minutes on the nose. Well done, my friend. He's Sam. I'm Chase. Cue the song.